Hello and welcome to the Weekend Football Podcast with Matchbook Betting Exchange. Of course, I'm not the normal host. Daniel Hussey, I'm afraid, is off on his hollybops, enjoying himself, getting some sunshine. I'm not quite as well groomed, shall we say. Definitely a more rotund version of Daniel Hussey, certainly a few years older than him. But my name is Ian Fortune. I am your host for the next 50 minutes, maybe an hour perhaps, depending on how long we go on. But I'm great and overjoyed to say I'm joined by two men that I have long admired as a weekly watcher of this podcast and indeed the Champions League podcast. I must say I have had great admiration for both Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke for a long time. Gentlemen, it's required viewing week on week. So I suppose I've never really dropped a comment in, which obviously people watching can do, but I have to say, it's a pleasure to meet you both. A mind of information, both of you. It really is. And as a result, I am going to take it relatively easy on you, except Adrian, it's not been a great few days for yourself now as regards Arsenal Football Club, shall we say?
No, we've had better weeks, Arsenal. Not good at Newcastle. Better, I thought, against Inter Milan. Very unlucky, I think, to lose that particular game. So yeah, I'm not getting too downbeat. But thanks for the kind words. It's very, very nice of you. And look, don't beat yourself up. Daniel Hussey has to be the best looking betting podcast broadcaster in Ireland, doesn't he? He has to. You know, there's no one out there that can compare.
In fairness, he has about 4 stone on me. That's the issue. It's just funny when you do meet him in person. You end up looking at him going, God, he's a very handsome man, isn't he? But that's enough of that. Because you may be watching on getting big-headed. Mark, of course, how is your own beloved QPR doing?
Yeah, can we move on? Yeah, it was a pretty sobering night on Tuesday when we got done 4-1 by Middlesbrough at Loftus Road. Yeah, unfortunately, injuries are biting hard. There's a lack of confidence in the team, a lack of spark, a lack of creativity going forward, and no one to score the goals whenever we do sort of conjure up a chance or two. But yeah, our ex-goalkeeper, Seny Dieng, came back to Loftus Road with Borough, made a few smart stops in midweek, and any chance of a potential comeback was snuffed out pretty quickly, and then we get done on the break too easily, I would say, as well. So yeah, difficult times at the minute for Rangers, second bottom in the league, and heading away to Leeds at the weekend is a frightful thought right now. So yeah, let's move on.
As a not so long suffering Manchester United supporter as you are, if you're in mid-40s in Ireland, you're either Liverpool or Manchester United. That's it. So I'm a Man U man for a long time, and I'm pretty sort of upbeat at the moment. Obviously, we don't know how disastrous or well it's going to go with Ruben Amorim, but lots to get excited about. Adrian, before we get started, you actually got to see QPR firsthand. I believe you did a great job in co-commentary.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Did the co-comments for Sky Sports. Yeah, so that was good. But yeah, Mark's right. QPR, they look like a team. They look like a team heading down. And Middlesbrough weren't at their very best, but looked like a team that are destined for the playoffs, I think. So yeah, there was a difference in level between the two. But yeah, it's good to be on co-comments duty for those big championship games.
Tell you what, though, just before we move on, Doak for Middlesbrough. That's what's a player, Adrian.
Yeah, remember the name. Yeah, remember the name. I was waxing lyrical over him. I think I described one of his assists as a piece of wing wizardry. It really, yeah, he looks a real. Well, he's a Liverpool player, isn't he? But he's a full Scotland international already as a teenager, and I don't think he's going to spend much of his career in the Championship. I think it looks like a Premier League level player to me.
Will he get the crack at Liverpool next year? They seem to have a lot of talent in the forward department.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard to get in Liverpool's team, especially if you're a right winger. I think there's a guy that occupies that position that's quite useful, but who may not be there long term. Let's see.
Well, let's get into it. Before we do get first into our first game and the feature game of the weekend, just the usual stuff. You have to bear with me for a moment, of course. Like and subscribe us on YouTube and make sure you follow us on all the various channels. Again, insights.matchbook.com is where you can get a recap of all the bets we are going to be offering up here today. And of course, Matchbook Betting Exchange for best price on the odds checker grid. Plus, check out all our bet builders. We will have a £10 podcast bet builder money back special a bit later on. We'll confirm that later on, but let's get into it, gentlemen, because I think, on a weekend where there are some notable notable matches. Obviously, the 4:30 kickoff on Sunday features Chelsea and Arsenal. Adrian, I think we'll start with yourself here, because your beloved Arsenal are 256 to win. Chelsea are currently trading at about 3.5 the draw. And this is, it's a very tasty tie. Perhaps at the start of the season, we didn't think it'd be as tasty as it's going to be, but Chelsea have certainly surprised me and surprised many more.
Yeah, look, no, they've done much better than anticipated. I think Enzo Maresca's doing a really good job, actually, looking after a squad that played like individuals last season, didn't they? They were the opposite of a team, but he has fostered a team. He's decided who he likes, who he's not sure about, and he's building something. And they're still pretty reliant on Cole Palmer, but it's not just him. Jackson has stepped up, and guys like Neto are beginning to get there. Moises Caicedo, for me, probably has been the best central midfielder in the division, maybe alongside Gravenberch at Liverpool. So they've got players that are really shining, and by and large the results have been decent. They have won only one of their last four, though, and I didn't think they were particularly impressive against Manchester United. So that's a little black mark, if not a black mark, a grey mark against them. And I do think that they're get-attable. I've been quite consistent with this season, and definitely last in terms of the Chelsea rearguard. I just think if you can get through the likes of Caicedo and Lavia and get at the back four, then you can really hurt them. And they have conceded at least one in each of their last 6 games. Premier League clean sheets kind of few and far between. And Maresca isn't a defensive coach. He's all about what they do with the ball. And when you come up against the best teams, the elite teams, and even though Arsenal aren't playing brilliantly at the moment, they are a top team. That's where you can come unstuck. And they lost to City, didn't they? They lost to Liverpool. So yeah, I actually feel that Arsenal can go there and win this game. And that might sound strange to some people, but I saw enough in the performance at Inter Milan to suggest that they're getting there. Hopefully Declan Rice will be back fit and available. Ødegaard will be maybe available to play a little bit longer. He came on just for sort of 5 or 10 minutes in midweek. I'd change the system. I'd bring in Ethan Nwaneri if I was in Arteta's shoes for this game. I just think it's a 3-man midfield works better, or will work better in this fixture. And I think that Arsenal can go there, as they have done in recent years, and get a positive result. 3 wins and 2 draws on Arsenal's last 5 visits to Stamford Bridge. I used to dread this fixture. I used to absolutely hate it when Drogba, Lampard and co and Jose Mourinho were there. Arsenal used to get battered year on year, but not anymore. And after a difficult week, I do see this as an opportunity for Arsenal to get a morale-boosting win in a London derby. And Arsenal's record in London derbies is pretty useful. I think they can go there at a decent price. Was it 2.56? That price might even expand, given the noise and the narrative around Arsenal at the moment. So I think if it gets even bigger, it could be worth jumping on board. Of course, Chelsea can win the game. Of course, they can score goals. But I think, having lost a couple on the trot, Arsenal are going to go there with a real intent to put things right. And they're good enough to do that.
Yeah, luckily there's no Isak playing up front, obviously, for Chelsea. He did the number on you last week, but Arsenal have been pretty bloodied in recent weeks compared, almost, in comparison to sort of Kai Havertz's jersey the other evening. The last win in the Premier League was a win against Southampton. That was 3-0 back in October 5th. So, Mark, you seem to go in the other direction. It is 4th v 5th. Chelsea just ahead of Arsenal on goal difference. But you seem to favour the men in blue rather than the men in red.
Yeah, only slightly. It's just a price thing. It's just a line thing. And Chelsea, trading around 2-1, 3.0 as home underdogs does slightly appeal to me with Arsenal, the way in which they're playing at the minute. And Adrian's right. Arsenal were very good on Wednesday night at San Siro against Inter, albeit an Inter side who did rotate sort of 3-4 of their key players. They've got a game at the weekend in Italy. So it was a positive, absolutely a move in the right direction. But also you can think back to last weekend at Newcastle, where I thought, at least for the first half, it was one of the worst Arsenal displays I've seen for a while, actually. And going forward, I thought they lacked imagination, ingenuity and spark, really. And defensively, this is a side who we've lauded for the last 18 months or so for their defensive work. And I think they have looked a bit more susceptible to conceding goals and clangers in not just recent weeks, but going back to the start of the season, really. So I think there are negatives with Arsenal. And look, there's a stylistic thing here too. It's kind of almost a complete opposite in the way in which the two teams like to approach football. But I just wonder whether the sort of low margin slugfest football that Arteta does like to see his team play away from home is starting to catch up on Arsenal a little bit. Because if they're not all on it, there's so little room and margin for error, really. And, I think we saw that at Newcastle. He didn't sort of change the style or approach, really. And they really sort of struggled to get out of the traps, really. And look, I went over the last 20 away Arsenal games in the Premier League and Champions League. They've only won the shot count in 7 of those 20 games. They were favourites to win them in 17 of those 20 as well. So it doesn't quite match up. And, in 3 of the last 14, they've managed a maximum of 11 shots away from home. So, if you're not sort of creating opportunities regularly, you're going to put yourself under pressure at some point. And we saw that at Newcastle. We saw it at Bournemouth, albeit with the red card influencing matters as well. And, I just think Chelsea, I've been relatively impressed. They're certainly more impressed than what I expected Chelsea to be at this stage of the season. I was dubious about the appointment of Maresca, but I think they have stepped up in the last few weeks. There still is that sort of element of unpredictability about them. I still absolutely agree with Adrian. Defensively, they can be got at. But I do think there's a bit more a sense of calm and stability that Maresca has brought, especially in midfield. Caicedo's been outstanding in that more defensive role compared to what he played under Pochettino. And obviously going forward, Cole Palmer, I expect to be fit, has been unbelievably good. Nicholas Jackson has been scoring and looking quite sharp. And it wasn't that long ago, this Chelsea team went to Anfield. They might have lost the game by a 1-goal margin, but I thought they were just as good as Liverpool for large parts of that match. So I've no doubts that they can cause Arsenal problems. The quality is in the final third. So I'm going to back Chelsea double chance and under 4.5 goals via the bet builder and getting a 1.8 shot. So you basically got all the draws on side, bar the 3-3 and above, and a low scoring home victory. So I think it's quite a nice price to cheer on if you want to be with the underdogs.
I suppose my role now is I have to lock in one of them, do I? This is the first time I've had to do it. It's against either or. Does
the deep end
influence my further choices? Huh?
I must say we disagree so much, but you're in the deep end here.
I might have to hide behind. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Mark makes some really good points. That there are negatives about Arsenal at the moment. There hasn't been a great deal of imagination. It's more of a feel choice for me, in regards that I feel Arsenal are due a performance and they're due to produce a turning point in their campaign. But there are enough doubts there.
The only thing I forgot to say actually was
go ahead.
No, the only thing I forgot to say, I don't know if it sort of tips the balance in my favour or not compared to Adrian, but it's a tough week for Arsenal. Away at Newcastle, away at San Siro on Wednesday, away at Chelsea. Chelsea will play a reserve team or a B team, if you like, in the Conference League on Thursday. So they're rested and well prepared. And, it feels like Arsenal need a little trip to Dubai. That was wonders, wasn't it, for them last January? International break coming up. Get those players out to Dubai next week, and maybe we'll see a different Arsenal after the break.
Might have to try a trip to Dubai myself if that's the case. I'm going to side with Mark just because I think the draw is sort of for me the most likely outcome. So I'll go with the Chelsea double chance and under 4.5 goals, and we'll move on before I start a row. Brighton versus Man City. This is the Saturday kickoff at 5:30. It's second playing 8. Man City, much like Arsenal, have suffered a bit of a bloody nose. You can see the prices there. Brighton are currently 4.6, 178 City, and the draw is currently trading at 4.3. Both teams to score is 1.6 yes, 2.58 no, and the handicap plus a half a goal and a goal. Brighton are 1.99, so it's evens each of two there effectively. The over's 2.32. That's over 3.5 actually, as opposed to over the 2.5, given the fact that Yeah, Brighton matches are the mean is it's 3.5 rather than 2.5, and that is something that both of you have tapped into. Mark, I'll let you kick off here because you are thinking very similarly on this one.
Yeah, we're thinking goals in this particular match, and there's been a lot written about, a lot spoken about with Man City and their potential crisis or the end of a dynasty occurring. I think it might be a little bit too early to sort of call that right now. We've been here many times before Christmas, questioning what's gone wrong at Man City, and inevitably they get players back fit and available and go on a long run after the new year and win the title. But I think it's a lot more open this season in terms of the Premier League title. Rodri's absence is significant, obviously, but this team is still only 2 points off the top at the minute without playing particularly well and with a lot of players injured or absent. So I do expect them to come on strong at some point, but whether it will be this weekend or not, it's probably doubtful, actually, with no Stones, no Diaz, no Rodri. Walker came back after a long time out last weekend and got roasted at Bournemouth. And you sort of look at their performance in the last couple of games. I think the Spurs defeat in the Cup is forgivable. Pep's got no real interest in sort of competing deep into that competition, but the defeat at Bournemouth was concerning, and he said so afterwards in terms of the intensity of his team. Then the Sporting loss was really quite worrying. There's two sort of strands which I kind of took from that. Is the sort of elongated Champions League group stage format giving a team like Man City the opportunity to, I'm not going to say throw a game, but to sort of rest and rotate his weary squad a little bit, because they've got so much less jeopardy in almost qualifying for the next round. Starting Simpson Pusey just sort of days after his 19th birthday and a week after his senior debut at centre half away at Lisbon, Sporting Lisbon, is, it's quite a big call. You've got Ake on the bench. Yes, he's not 100%. Walker on the bench as well. So it's not like he was short of options. But so I do think they still can and will field a very competitive 11 at Brighton. And it's not often, or it's almost never, does Pep Guardiola lose 4 games on the spin. I think it's happened just once in his managerial career. So it's still a big ask. But I do think Brighton can cause some problems, obviously. They will be fresher after not playing midweek football. I thought they were sublime in the first half at Liverpool last week. Probably should have been more than a goal up. And the issue with Brighton is they do play some heart-stopping football defensively, and they do sort of make a lot of clangers which lead to goals. I think they're sort of leading that error metric in the Premier League this season, and defensively they haven't been great. I think they've conceded multiple goals in 5 of the last 6 now, and so they're going to probably have to score at least twice to win this match. They're themselves without Lewis Dunk, which is a big blow defensively, and you look at their home record, just 1 clean sheet in 5. 3 teams have been to the Amex and scored multiple goals as well. So rather than sort of pick and choose either side, I just think it's clear and obvious to back goals in this game. Brighton can and should score. City have kept 5 clean sheets in 16 this season. Their only away clean sheet since the opening day came at Slovan Bratislava. And as we've seen, not just last week, but throughout this season under Hutzler and before he arrived, Brighton are very capable in the final third. It's just defensively where you have question marks. So I think you've got 2 teams with concerns and a fragility at the back, but 2 teams who like to play front foot football. So it should be a really interesting, exciting, entertaining game. So over 2.5 goals from both teams to score was the best bet for me in this game by a stretch.
Yeah, Adrian, both teams were sort of beaten 2-1 last week, and I'd say Brighton are feeling even more aggrieved than City were. City weren't great, but I thought Brighton were very good for large spells. And listen, they'll be looking to certainly hold City, but it's going to be very difficult, isn't it?
It's going to be hard. Yeah, I remember City going there and wiping the floor with them at the end, towards the end of last season. That's not that long ago, but things have changed quite dramatically, haven't they? With Brighton, with Hutzler's arrival, he's injected a little bit more fresh energy. I make you right. I think at Anfield they were excellent. Obviously leading the game, and I was getting my hopes up of Liverpool and City losing, but they turned it around, Liverpool, to their credit. But it should give them confidence. If you can go to Anfield and be mega competitive against this Liverpool side, then you can certainly be competitive at home to a Manchester City team that's very weary at the moment, that's sort of on its knees a little bit in terms of fitness. So they've got a chance here. Brighton are an energetic team. They're fit. They run hard. They're vibrant and dynamic. They're not going to let City off the hook and give them an easy ride and just sit behind the ball. They're going to take it to them, and that should make for a really good game. They could get picked off. Maybe don't think it's that much of a blow losing Lewis Dunk. For me, he's not been the same player for about 6 months. I think he's maybe on the slide a little bit, Dunk. So, they'll have to have a reshuffle there. And yeah, they could get beaten, but I do think they're capable of winning. So I'm like Mark. I'm not going to go with a pick here. I'm going to go with both teams to score over 2.5. Just some numbers. Brighton have scored in 9 of 10. City have scored in every game. This is in the Premier League. Obviously, Brighton had high scoring, both teams to score matches against Spurs, against Man United, against Forest, all at the Amex. In terms of both teams to score, 7 out of 10 for Brighton, 8 out of 10 for Manchester City, and 70% of both of their games have gone over 2.5 goals. So the numbers are definitely in our favour. City do not look secure at the back with all these injuries. And they've even when they had players fit, they were very open, and the structure of the team was a little bit loose. So yeah, I think Brighton can absolutely score here, but this is City, and you've got Haaland at the top end of the pitch and others. They can score too. So yeah, this felt like the clear standout pick.
Yeah, and as the comments just came through there from the blown is green, goals is what he expects, and yeah, this is one of those matches where you could do worse than back 3-2 either side, both ways, and at biggest prices, you never know. But yeah, we're all fancying goals here, gentlemen. Now, who do I lock in? Both teams to score over 2.5 for Mark, and same for Adrian. I'll tell you what, I'll go with Adrian in this one, right? Fair enough. Is it as simple as Rodri missing? I heard Pep has given out about his small squad, but that's his own choice. But Rodri is really very much the glue that keeps them together, isn't he?
He's brilliant, isn't he? He's a Ballon d'Or winner. He's supposed to be the best player in the world, and if you lose the best player in the world, it will impact. I mean, it's not just that. I think they're an aging squad. A lot of their guys are 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. That's not ancient. Of course it's not. But I do think this may be contributing to a few knocks and niggles and aches and pains. And obviously this busy schedule, it might be affecting them as well, where they don't get quite as much time to rest. And that's the problem with having injuries. Pep has always been a clever rotator. He's got such a deep squad. Now, when you rotate, when you've got a lot of players out, it could be more detrimental. So yeah, they're there for the taking, really, at the moment. It won't last. We just got to enjoy it. Us non-City fans have got to enjoy it while it lasts. This is a great time to play City, and Brighton have a shot for sure of getting a good result.
Yeah, I think they could be a team to watch in League One next year, Man City. We'll leave that for another day. The third match we are going to move on to is Liverpool versus Aston Villa. And this is one of the rare 8 o'clock Saturday night kickoffs. And this is one where you will sit down, enjoy, get the popcorn out. And, again, you said it earlier on, stylistically, it's not going to be quite as stylistic as it was last year in terms of a bit more sort of heavy, rock and roll type football. Liverpool playing a lot more pragmatism this year, but at the same time, they're scoring goals. They scored 3 goals in each of the fixtures last year against Villa home and away, a 3-0 victory in the corresponding fixture, and a 3-3 draw in the away match. So listen, Liverpool are doing everything right. Arne Slot, it's been said many times by many different outlets and whatnot. I'm sure yourselves have been very, very impressed with them as well. But Liverpool are just trucking along nicely, and that they do love a bit of control. Now, they didn't have full control last week against Brighton, but dug it out. That 3-minute spell just destroyed Brighton. Adrian, we'll let you start. It's hard to see past Liverpool just the way things are going.
Yeah. Look, really impressed with them this season. I still think they've had an easier ride than some in terms of the fixtures, and I still think there will be bumps in the road. But in the here and now, any team that can beat Leverkusen 4-0 at home is good enough to beat, Aston Villa at home. Villa are a decent team, we know that, but I don't think they're defending particularly well this season. I have a few concerns over them at the back, at centre half. I don't think any of the centre backs have performed consistently well so far this term, and that's an issue, isn't it? When you're about to head up to Anfield, they conceded quite a lot of chances. I didn't get a chance to watch the full game of Bruges beating them, on Wednesday night, but I heard that they gave up a lot of chances in the game, and that's also a little bit of a worry. And you look at their away games this season, Villa, and both teams' scorers landed in all of them. They haven't kept clean sheets. They can score anywhere, but they can also concede goals. No, I'd fancy Liverpool. Just because of their form, their quality. They have a pretty good record against Villa at Anfield as well. Salah is just playing better than ever, isn't he? He's frighteningly good. I wrote a piece on him this week for the Premier League, and he's actually eclipsing his average across the last 4 seasons in almost all of the categories that forwards would sort of cherish. So that is outstanding for a 32-year-old. So he's clearly the man to watch. I'm going to pair a Liverpool win because I just think it's hard to back against Liverpool at the moment. I'm going to pair it with over 2.5 goals. Villa away games have all gone over 2.5, as well as both teams to score landing. Villa away games actually are averaging 3.8 goals per game. Liverpool home games, not quite as expansive or crazy. 3 of 5 have gone over 2.5 though. So just about, on the right side of that. I just think Unai Emery, good coach, excellent coach, but he can overthink it. He doesn't have a good record at Anfield. He didn't with Arsenal. Got pumped there last year as well. Liverpool scored 3 against them in each of the last 2 games last season. So, for me, Liverpool can probably score 3 here and cover it themselves. But we also get the 2-1 onside like we did last week with Brighton. So, Liverpool and over 2.5 goals comes out around even money. Just feels like a sensible pick.
Yeah, a sensible pick. It's a weekend where, like last weekend, the sensible picks didn't really come through. It was
they don't always.
Weekend,
we can only go off. We can only go off what we sort of see with our own eyes, what the data tells us. We don't get every single one right, but I think a lot of people, if they're looking ahead to this game, would see a Liverpool win, and maybe with both teams contributing.
Yeah, they really seem to be in control of their matches. Liverpool, obviously, we touched on last week. It was a bit different, and that was the situation with Forest when they concede first. Things can take a change. They're not quite as likely to build as many chances, perhaps, Mark. But you're obviously of the feeling that similar thoughts with Adrian, just coming from a different angle.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I wanted to try and find a pro Villa angle at a big line or a big price coming into this game, just because Liverpool's win against Leverkusen was very impressive in midweek. But again, it kind of followed a familiar theme now with Liverpool, where they start quite slowly in the first half and kind of put themselves under a bit of pressure to come out in the second half and put on a show. We saw that against Brighton last week. They were put really under the pump in that first half, fell behind. Leverkusen didn't score, didn't necessarily create bags of chances in that first half, but neither did Liverpool, actually. And almost all of the main damage came after half-time. And if you look at the first half table in the Premier League this season, Liverpool are top of the table, but they scored just 10 first half goals in 10 games under Arne Slot. So they're not coming out all guns blazing, as perhaps we've become accustomed to in previous years. He is obviously a smart guy. He noticed the error of their performance last weekend against Brighton, withdrawing McAllister and Szoboszlai, who are quite ineffective, brought on Curtis Jones. He changed the game in their favour, brought more control, brought more noise and momentum really from the stands as well, and he obviously helped them to contribute in midweek. So I do think on paper this game could be quite tricky. I'm not convinced it's going to be the goal frenzy the market imagines it might be. I think Villa will take a relatively pragmatic approach, look to utilise the counter-attack as best as possible, and they do have some tools and weapons who could cause Liverpool problems. But results-wise, they've not been great at the weekend after playing in midweek, whether it's Champions League or cup ties, and they do have a day's less preparation time, having played on Wednesday in Belgium, Liverpool playing at home on Tuesday with another home tie on Saturday. So there is definitely an advantage there for Liverpool. For Villa, the 4-1 last week, I thought flattered Spurs a little bit, but they could have a few complaints really in that second half, such a passive performance. But they really fell apart after Morgan Rogers was substituted, and Emery sort of switched the formation and system, and they lost control. And lost out quite comfortably in the end. But they have had that propensity to collapse at times, but it's not common. And I do think we will see a better side of Villa this time around. So I was trying to bring myself to back Villa with a +1.25 goal start, or even +1.5 start on the handicap. But you obviously need Liverpool to win by 2 goals or more for that selection to lose. But ultimately, I think the easiest selection here is to be pro Liverpool, back them to win the game, and then it's whether you take the over 2.5 goals of Adrian or the under 4.5 goals, which is what I'm going to suggest at 198. 5 goals or more in a Liverpool game is quite rare this season, actually. They've only gone over 3.5 goals once in the Premier League under Slot. Obviously did so in midweek, scoring 4 goals as well. But I'm just not convinced this game sees 5 goals or more. And to get it around evens with that boost, basically on Liverpool to win, quite happy to select that rather than be tricky and try and find a way to get Villa on side. So they've won 19 of the last 24 home league games, Liverpool. So yeah, I think it's the obvious selection to back them to win and then partner it with some sort of goal selection. So yeah, I've gone unders, but if you want to go overs, Adrian's your man.
Yeah, it really is a case of what, it's not even a case of what way you see this match. Some people are just overs people and some people are just unders people. I tend to be more of the overs than the unders, because there's nothing worse than you see first goal going in after 30 minutes, you go, grand, there's still loads of time, and all of a sudden, bang, bang, and you're going, oh no, and you're in trouble. So I'll side with the overs with Adrian. Liverpool and over 2.5 goals. Liverpool have only conceded 6 in the league this year. They're really, really strong in that sense. But you can see Villa certainly causing them hassle. Watkins is very dangerous, and of course, if the main man comes on in the second half, he could be scoring as well. But yeah, Liverpool just are cruising along at present. They've scored 19 times. They've scored more than Villa this year. So I'll go with the overs. Adrian, you're in the book. You're in the book officially on your own there now. So both Liverpool and over 2.5 goals at 2.0. Even money, exactly. We move on. Sunday's earlier game, the televised kickoff, is the 2:00 game on Sunday. Not Forest versus Newcastle. You can see the Forest are 2.94, Newcastle 2.68 after that fine success against Arsenal last week, and the draw at 3.45. So it is pretty open. Forest have been absolutely unbelievable. Adrian, I suppose we have to start with yourself. You see the prices there. Forest 2.0 +0, and the overs 2.5 is even money effectively, and unders is 1.94, so evens each of 2 there. So 2.5 goals is what the marketeers are making it. Forest are on 3 straight wins. They're after beating West Ham, Leicester 3-1 away, and of course Palace 1-0. They are absolutely flying. Of course, they're the only team to have lowered the colours of Liverpool this year in the Premier League. You must be just pinching yourself at present.
I can't. Well, yeah, it's amazing, really, that Forest have been as good as they have been. Really solid defensively, superb. I love the central defensive partnership of Murillo and Milenkovic. I think it's outstanding, and he's just got a settled side. Got one of the most informed strikers in the division in Chris Wood, who really suits the style of play under Nuno. His record under this manager is phenomenal. It's only bettered by Erling Haaland. So since Nuno arrived at the City Ground, Haaland scored more than Wood, but only just. So it's working. But this is a tough game, and I saw firsthand what Newcastle are capable of when they beat Arsenal last weekend. And I think both of these teams, their best aspects are actually without the ball. When they're at it without the ball, they're both really hard to play against. Forest have got great shape and discipline and are tough to break down. Liverpool found that out, and Arsenal found out how good Newcastle can be without the ball. I thought it was a phenomenal out of possession performance actually by Newcastle. As bad as Arsenal were, and they weren't good. I do think some credit has to go to them for their work rate, for the discipline, the shape. They really focused, and when they focus, they can make it so hard for the opponent. So they might make it hard for each other. That's kind of where I'm coming at here with this one. They're both excellent on the counter attack. We know that, each of these teams, but I do think that their strength lies in off the ball work. So I'm going to go with unders here, under 2.5. You don't always get the chance these days, to sort of get the under 2.5 at a good price, but I will do here 1.94. Unders have landed in 7 of 10 Forest games this season. That's more than any other team in the Premier League. They keep things tight. I had them last week, and I was fuming when Souček got himself sent off because I think that in that game, it would have gone unders in the way that I'd anticipated. In the end, of course, they're against 10 men for a long time and they win easily. 6 of 10 Newcastle games have also gone under 2.5. And this goes against the grain, because most games these days tend to go over. So, these are 2 more cautious teams. 4 clean sheets for Forest this season. And both teams have scored no, which I did also look at. That's one to consider. That's landed in 5 Forest games this season. So look, I think they might pay one another quite a bit of respect here, Forest and Newcastle, and it might be a tougher watch than we'd hope as neutrals watching it. I've actually had the pleasure of watching these 2 teams in the flesh this season in this fixture at the City Ground in the Carabao Cup. I worked on the game and it finished 1 apiece after extra. No, it didn't go to extra time. It finished 1 apiece, went to penalties. And they both had their moments in the game, but it wasn't a match filled with chances. What I will say is that Forest rotated heavily in that game. Newcastle didn't, and Forest, were competitive, which is a great sign for them. So I think this could be a 1-1 draw. Another 1-1 draw is probably the result I fancy most, but I would also anticipate maybe the winner coming, 1 goal either side, 1-0. To Forest or to Newcastle. So I'm going to go with under 2.5 goals at 1.94.
You're obviously a current form man. You can only take each season on its merits. So you wouldn't even be concerned when you look back at the results from last year, like 5 goals and 4 goals in the 2 games. Newcastle won the away fixture 3-2 last year and lost their home fixture actually 3-1. That doesn't concern you?
Not so much. I mean, they were good games. You're right. No, I hadn't really thought about that when I was looking at the game. I was looking at what they're producing this season. Forest went to St James's Park. I'll never forget that. I think it was a Wood hat trick there, wasn't it? It really sort of kick-started the Nuno era in fine style. No, I think with Newcastle, they know that they're light on defenders at the moment. They've got a few injuries. I think there's a real focus from their point of view on off the ball work. There certainly is in the tougher games. And I think when they look at the league table, they've got to look at Forest away as being one of the tougher games. So I expect them to focus quite heavily on what they do without the ball and look to hurt them on the break. And it'll be the same with Forest. So just based on form this season, unders looks a decent enough shout.
Yeah, no, it seems to be the way they're playing. That's no question. Mark, before the season, if I'd said to you this is going to be 3rd versus 11th, you would maybe saying it was going to be the other way around, that Newcastle would be 3rd and Forest 11th. But there is only 4 points between them, and if Newcastle happen to win this, obviously there's only a point between them. So it just goes to show where this sort of Premier League table is at the moment. It's still very, very tight, and this match could be very tight also.
Yeah, I believe it will be as well, based on all the reasons that Adrian's outlined. But one thing I can't sort of work out is why Newcastle are favourites to win this game away from home. It's not something that I'm willing to support or advocate. I'm happy to go against that and oppose Newcastle here. I'm going to be pro Nottingham Forest. They've had a fantastic season so far, have slightly overachieved according to the data, where they're 6th on expected points. But even still, they clearly are a very well-drilled outfit right now. Very awkward team to play against. Adrian's already outlined all the key individuals across the park. They're just a very rounded unit. And look, Nuno's teams are never going to be swashbuckling in style and forward areas. They're never going to be creating tons of chances. But defensively, they will be organised. They will be efficient. And, if you exclude penalties, only Liverpool have a better expected goals against record in the Premier League this season. It's quite marginal too, 0.81 to 0.89 per game. No side has allowed more, or fewer, I should say, fewer big chances than Nottingham Forest. Just 7 goals conceded in 10 games. They've already been away to Liverpool and won, drawn at Chelsea and Brighton as well. 1 defeat in 10, 5 defeats in 20 Premier League games going back to March. They found a way that is working really well for them. And they've also found a way recently to win again at the City Ground, which had been an issue for them for a while. So can't work out why they're underdogs in this game, actually, based off all the data I have, makes Forest favourites. And so immediately I look towards Forest with a quarter goal start on the Asian handicap, but we can actually make Forest pay. Obviously, with the quarter goal start, if the game ends in a draw, you only get a half stakes winner, but we can back Forest double chance and under 4.5 goals. effectively at the same price at 175, and you get the full stakes winner then if the game ends in a low scoring draw or a Forest win, a tight match. I cannot see this game escalating to 5 goals or more. And also just, it's not all pro Forest. It's also Newcastle. I agree with Adrian, like Newcastle were brilliant last week, but I do think it's easier for Newcastle to get themselves up for a game at home to Arsenal compared to perhaps a middle of the road side in the Premier League, whether that's home or away, actually. And there are away records since the start of last season, just 7 wins in 24, 6 of which were against bottom half clubs, 13 defeats in that time. And it's quite simple to see what's going wrong for Newcastle on the road. They're just not keeping clean sheets. Just 3 away in that 24-game sample. And if you keep conceding away from home, it makes it very, very difficult to win away games in the Premier League, requiring at least 2 goals or more. So do I see them scoring at least twice against Forest? Of course, they're capable, but I'm happy to sort of oppose that view. And therefore, I think the double chance has got a great chance of landing. And look at individual sort of games for Newcastle away. The Chelsea game was a bit all over the place. They were beaten up at Fulham. They were very good at Everton, but still failed to win. Wolves, they were fortunate to win. And Bournemouth, they were very lucky to get away with a point after the VAR decision went in their direction too. So, I'm sceptical about Newcastle away from St James's Park. And I'm quite firm and sort of fond of Forest at the minute too. So this game kind of, it's one of my strongest picks of the Premier League this weekend, actually. Forest double chance and under 4.5 goals.
Yeah, Irish John just said Chris Wood for the Ballon d'Or. Hard to argue against that, really. Like he's banging them in left, right, and centre. He's what you'd call old school, no question about it. Gentlemen, you both made very compelling cases, and I think I'm playing to the crowd here in the sense where Adrian made such a compelling argument about under 2.5 goals that under 4.5 goals seems like a gimme, and therefore 175 Notts Forest and double chance. I think that'll do me. So we'll go with Mark's selection there.
I'm switching as well,
Forest.
mate.
I can't say, I'm not allowed to say Notts Forest. Sorry, excuse me. Nottingham Forest, double chance and under 4.5 goals at 175. Yeah, I'll be locking that one in. Before we go to the other bet section, I forgot to mention the £10 podcast Bet Builder Money Back Special. That's a Brighton double chance and both teams to score at 2.8 against City. Again, Brighton double chance and both teams to score at 2.8 against Man City. So if you do take that, and if it's not a 2-2 or a 2-1 to Brighton or something like that, you get your money back as a bet in the Bet Builder there. So that's worth looking at. And let's move on because we have EPL, EFL, World Bets, any other bets effectively. Mark, we'll start with yourself. You're not expecting goals in your first selection.
No, the Championship on Sunday, it's Burnley versus Swansea. I'm going to select both teams to score no at 175. This is the ball-hogging derby of the Championship. Scott Parker and Luke Williams, the head coaches here, they love their sides to dominate possession. First and third in the possession ranks in the Championship so far this season, 58% and 61% respectively. Often leads to pretty tepid games, actually, especially Burnley matches. They've been god-awful, just really, really dull all season. Those matches across the whole campaign for Burnley are averaging less than 1.8 expected goals in total. But in fairness, both teams have been pretty good defensively, obviously hogging the ball, starves their opposition of chances, and they've kept 12 clean sheets between them in 27 games. So it makes sense to me to sort of back that trend to continue on Sunday by selecting at least one side to fail to score. Burnley have conceded just 3 goals in 9. They've also scored just 4 goals in 7 and only scored 8 goals in the last 11 Championship matches. And BTTS no has landed in 9 of 13. 7 of those 13 have actually featured 0 or 1 goal maximum. Then you look at Swansea, they scored 3 and 7, conceded 3 and 6. Overall, 9 of their 14 have gone under 1.5. And BTTS no has landed in 9 of 14 as well. So this wager has effectively won in 18 of their combined 27 matches. And under 1.5 goals has been a very prominent winner as well whenever these two teams have been playing so far this season as well. So, yeah, expecting a bit of a snooze fest. Very few opportunities, very few chances, but a lot of passing.
Yeah, it sounds like the type of game you could get involved in, but just not watch, which is what you're saying. You're also off to Stuttgart.
Yeah, I made a big song and dance last week about the potential for goals when Stuttgart went to Leverkusen. Obviously, that game ended 0-0. I have no idea how it did. There were gallons of opportunities, but it's just one of those things in football and betting. Sometimes best laid plans go up in smoke. But I'm not willing to sort of run away from it. I think the same selection has got legs on Sunday. Over 2.5 goals. BTTS. Stuttgart against Eintracht Frankfurt at 1.7 or bigger. It's a bit short, but the stats and data is pretty overwhelming here. Makes it very backable for me. Last weekend, Stuttgart, that was their first clean sheet of the season. They've conceded over 2 expected goals in that match against Leverkusen, but still managed to burgle a point. 7 of their previous 8 had gone over in the Bundesliga. Their 4 home games have produced 17 goals. That includes a 5-1 thrashing of Dortmund, a 3-3 draw with Mainz. They rarely disappoint 2 weeks running domestically, so expecting more from them this time around. And then you've got Frankfurt, who are just fantastic to watch. A really sort of electric counter-attacking team led by Omar Marmoush in attack, the Egyptian who just can't stop scoring. The same amount of goal involvements this season as Harry Kane in the Bundesliga, 10 goals and 6 assists. They walloped Bochum 7-2 last weekend. They've also had a 3-3 with Bayern, a 4-2 at Kiel, 2-2 with Hoffenheim. They scored twice or more in 6 of 9. They've also conceded 2 or more in 5 of 9. And 3 of their 9 games so far this season in the Bundesliga have featured 6 goals or more. So just makes sense to support goals in a match involving sort of 2 attack-minded teams that have each managed just 1 clean sheet each all season in the Bundesliga. So yeah, BTTS and overs.
That sounds like a much more interesting game to watch than Burnley Swansea. That has to be said. Yeah, that's a 1.7. Adrian, you're obviously a closet, Spurs fan. That you always had a love for Spurs, and you've decided that they're worth watching against Ipswich.
Yeah, I like a jinx bet on Spurs. Spurs play Ipswich. Actually, I grew up as an Ipswich fan, and so they got a real special place in my heart. And I would love nothing more than Ipswich to go to the White Hart for North London and win. But I just don't see it happening, I'm afraid. Ipswich are fun. They'll go for it, home or away. They'll be expansive where possible and try and score goals. But unfortunately, the defence is just not at Premier League level. The guys, I think Darragh O'Shea has had Premier League football before, but the others haven't. And I think it showed at times. They have conceded 4 at City, West Ham, and at Brentford. They contributed in all of those games themselves, but ultimately they were undone quite easily. And Spurs are in good nick at the moment for me. I think I like them going forward. They've themselves have cut loose on occasion. They walloped Everton, didn't they, with 4. They smashed West Ham with 4. And obviously last weekend, even though it did flatter them a little bit, they still racked up 4 goals against Aston Villa and only really started playing in the second half. If they're at it from the word go against Ipswich, I think they could actually comfortably get 4 goals, maybe more, against them. So look, Spurs are unbackable at 1.27. But if you really do fancy them to win the game, maybe back them to win and scoring 4 goals, which is sort of on the sheet for Matchbook. That comes down as any other home win beyond the scorelines where the home team will score at least 3 times. So any win where Spurs score 4 or more goals, you get 3.05, which is a lot better than 1.27. So it's a fun one to have a little dabble on potentially if you fancy Ipswich getting walloped.
There's be a fly in the wall as each of those Tottenham goals are going in, and Adrian jumping up and down this couch delighted with himself.
I will not be punching the air with delight. I can assure you.
Yeah. Darragh, you mentioned Darragh O'Shea. He's actually he played Gaelic football as a young fella from the same GAA club that I did in Dublin. So an interesting side point there. And Leeds halftime, full-time interest too. I watched them. Was it yesterday evening? I watched a fair bit of that match rather than some of the Champions League stuff. I'll tell you one thing. I have one of my best pals, a Leeds fan, and it's Jekyll and Hyde stuff at times. Yeah.
I know. Millwall did a job on them last night. Very good defensive side, Millwall under Neil Harris. And Leeds do have the ability or propensity to run out of ideas against teams that defend really well. Teams that defend with aggression, defend down the middle of the spine of the pitch properly. Leeds can struggle. It was a problem last year for them. Don't really have a plan B, but QPR aren't that team. QPR aren't that team at all. QPR
Mark is throwing daggers at you from across the room.
He knows. Mark knows. Yeah, look, obviously I worked on that QPR game in midweek. I also worked on their defeat at home to Hull. In both games, they conceded a lot of chances. They were pretty powder puff out of possession. In fairness to QPR, they're missing big players. Clark Salter's the centre half. Might be their best centre half. He's missing. Jack Colback, their best central midfielder, he's missing. Elias Chair came off injured in the week. He's not really got going this year, but he might be out. I don't know. Dembele's out at the moment. And the main centre forward, Frey, has also been missing. So they've lost 4 or 5 regular starters. They can't defend. They've got quite a weak central midfield at the moment. And I just get the sense that they're a bit lambs to the slaughter at Ellen Road this weekend. Leeds... Well, Daniel Farke will demand a reaction to losing 1-0 at Millwall, so I expect them to be fired up. And at home, they're immense. Last home game, they played fellow strugglers to QPR Plymouth, won the game 3-0. All 3 goals in the first half. Shot count was 23-0. So they didn't even get a shot, Plymouth. And based on what I've seen at QPR, they might not have many shots either. So I was trying to find a way to get Leeds on side at 1.2. So you can't get them on the nose, but you can go Leeds, which is obviously Leeds to be leading at half time and Leeds to be winning at full time. They're more than capable of getting off to a fast start, getting in front and seeing the job through because they're a little bit toothless, QPR. QPR also are the only team in the Championship not to have led at half time this season. They are not good in the first half of matches, Rangers. So, 1.82-ish, I think we can get on this. But it's a fun way to follow Leeds. It will be an absolute coupon buster if Leeds don't win this game. This is the one that's going to feature on a lot of ACCAs, I would imagine.
In a week of coupon busters, like given the results last weekend.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, I mean, Mark knows it. Mark won't want to watch this match, I don't think.
that feels like a verbal broadside, Mark. Your love for your team never diminishes, no matter how bad things are going. We'll move on to the long shot section, which is always a really popular part of the podcast. Mark, we'll let you start. I'm not even sure what you're going for as your long shot. I didn't get that one in advance.
Well, my selection, I went to put it in, and Adrian selected something incredibly similar from the same game. So I've had to sort of scrabble around last minute to find something alternative. And I'm going to do something a little bit different compared to what we normally do. Rather than just focus on one game, I've got 4 games, basically backing both teams to score in a 4-fold, which comes in at 5.0, so 4-1. I'm not going to go through all 4 games individually, but there are sort of the collective both teams to score hit rates in their league games involving these 8 teams this season. And I'll read them out. It's quite a persuasive case for a 4-1 shot, really. So first of all, Brentford versus Bournemouth, 15 of their combined 20 Premier League matches have seen BTTS hit. The same hit rate has occurred for Brighton and Man City this season, 15 from 20. And then you've got Stuttgart and Frankfurt, who I've already covered, 14 from 18 have seen BTTS. And then Augsburg against Hoffenheim, again, 14 from 18. So you've got 75%, 75%, 78%, and 78% hit rates for both teams to score when combining the 2 teams together. It's not the right way to price football matches up at all, but in terms of providing a bit of a picture, a 75% probability would imply odds of around the sort of 1 to 3 mark, and a 4-fold of 1 to 3 shots would return something like 3.2 in decimals. We're getting 5.0 here. So for me, that's a bit of interest across the Premier League and the Bundesliga on Saturday and Sunday to back the BTTS 4-fold: Brentford versus Bournemouth, Brighton versus Man City, Stuttgart, Frankfurt, and Augsburg against Hoffenheim.
Stuttgart and Frankfurt as one just after the 0-0 draw last week. You're sort of, it could be 3-3 after 20 minutes. You know what I mean? It's fresh in the memory.
I gave it the big build-up last week, and obviously watched the game on Friday night and saw the 0-0 inevitable, really, after giving it the sort of, this is going to be the game of the weekend on Friday night. And someone tweeted me saying, any comment on the 0-0 at Leverkusen versus Stuttgart, as if I was responsible for the 0-0. And I was like, It's football, it's betting, it happens at times. If this game ends 0-0, Stuttgart versus Frankfurt, I'll resign from the podcast.
No, don't say that, Mark.
If Dan comes back and Mark is gone, I will never be asked to do anything ever again. You should have responded, here are my thoughts at the press conference. Adrian, you're sticking with a match. We've touched on him already, but a bit of Brighton.
Yeah, I think Mark was thinking about Brighton and both teams to score. My shout is Brighton and over 1.5 goals as my long shot against Manchester City. You know, I think we all realise that City are not at the moment at their very best. They're a little bit vulnerable compared to usual, and I do think that Brighton, who have had a free week, will be bang up for this game, and their high energy, positive style of play, it looks tailor-made to me to cause this weakened City team a few problems. Obviously City are favourites to win the game. They always will be, and I understand that. There's every chance that they do. But I think at the price, 5.1, Brighton and over 1.5 goals represents pretty good value. Brighton have scored in their last 6 games. I've gone through the numbers earlier in regards to how often they score and how most of their matches go over 2.5 goals, Brighton and City. And Brighton's record at home this season is pretty good. They're unbeaten in the league, 1-2 drawn 3. Did beat Spurs, didn't they? They beat United as well. So maybe they can beat Man City as well. 5.1.
Yeah, absolutely. Man City getting themselves ready for taking on QPR in League One next year. We better go and move on to the best podcast bets. I think we'll start with you again, Adrian. You're hoping that Everton are going to negate West Ham, who have been involved in a few scoring matches of late. Not always on the right side of the scoreline, but these are two teams that are desperate to get a bit of momentum.
The dower, aren't they? I don't know. I just don't. Lopetegui's West Ham, it's just not doing it for me at all. They supposedly won the transfer window, and then all the fans are expecting this positive brand of football where they go for it, and Lopetegui's done the opposite. Really, he's been really cautious. He's come up with some really odd game plans and team selections, and I'll be honest, you can sometimes tell. I think we can all tell, not just because I used to play the game, but you can tell when a team aren't really having the manager. That's what I see with West Ham. I don't think he's far away from getting the sack, Julian Lopetegui, and it might be the weekend where it all falls apart for him. I think it's a really big game, and I think he will set out with a must not lose mentality. Everton are really competitive in games like this against fellow strugglers, but they're not a free scoring side, Everton. Are they? Calvert-Lewin is more miss than hit, and the goals not coming thick and fast from elsewhere in the side, are they? 8 of the last 10 meetings between West Ham and Everton, by the way, a fixture between sort of two Premier League stalwarts. 8 of the last 10 have gone under 2.5 goals. This fixture has a history of being a little bit of a snooze fest. Everton this season, 4 of their 5 games against bottom half teams have gone under 2.5 goals. 5 of their last 6 games, full stop, Everton have gone under 2.5 goals. Now West Ham have been involved in higher scoring games, but they're not up against a rip-roaring attacking force, in my opinion, this weekend. So I think they can keep Everton at bay pretty well as well. Just looking at Everton's sort of XG, touches inside the opposition box, shots, etc. Everton are ranking around 17th for all of those. So yeah, it's for me, it's two sort of struggling sides in a way that might cancel one another out. I think it could be 0-0 or 1-0. Either way, I'm going to go West Ham and Everton under 2.5. It's odds against, which is nice, 2.06.
You really have to selling that one. I won't be looking for an illegal feed to watch a 3 o'clock kickoff from West Ham and Everton. Is one to be checking on the live score. Mark, you've gone further afield. You're off to Brazil.
Yes, Saturday night, the league leaders Botafogo are playing Coimbra, and happy to be with the home side here. Going to back them to win and both teams to score no at 1.83. Botafogo played midweek; they won 3-0 against Vasco to move 6 points clear at the top of the table. It was their 11th win in 16 home fixtures so far this season. It was also their 15th clean sheet of the season, 8 of which have been earned at home. And they conceded just 11 home goals in those 16 games. And they've also conceded just 1 non-penalty goal in the last 9 league games, home or away. Quite a remarkable record, that. And they're facing a Coimbra side who are effectively facing relegation at the minute. They're 7 points from safety with 3 league wins since June, just 6 rounds of action still to play. They've been limping across the season recently, 9 defeats in 16. They've also failed to score at all in 9 of the last 11. Their only goal away from home in 8 came from the penalty spot. They've failed to score a 9 of 16 away all season. They rank rock bottom for almost all of the major attacking metrics this season, So, put it all together, you've got a home side, top of the table, winning comfortably and convincingly and consistently at home, conceding just 1 non-penalty goal in the last 9 games against an away side bereft of confidence, bereft of form. And they've also failed to score in 9 of the last 11 with their only goal in 8 away from home from the penalty spot. It all comes together, I think, in quite a nice price here at 183. The home team to win and both teams to score no at Botafogo.
I'm getting on that one.
I think we're both getting on that one. The 183 mightn't last too long as soon as this goes out. Gentlemen, that's it. Another intriguing weekend of the Premier League to come, and some great bets outside of that. My thanks for making this such a painless experience. The manicured one will be back next week. Daniel, will come back. Hopefully, Mark will still be with us. Okay.
We're not going to hold him to it.
I'm going to set the notifications now for the Stuttgart game. Now, I might have to turn them off by halftime. They might be going past the goalkeepers like hailstones, but we'll stick with it. Gentlemen, thanks so much indeed. That's it, the weekend football. Thanks to Matchbook Betting Exchange. Of course, don't forget to check out all the various offers on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. And of course, that bet builder there, the £10 podcast bet builder money back special. Brighton double chance and both teams to score at 2.8. By all accounts, if Brighton win, there's a couple of goals in the game. I know Adrian will certainly be happy, and I'm sure Mark will be happy too. But that's it from us this weekend. Enjoy the football over the coming days. We'll see you next week.